Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of Tea and Coffee with Paula and... We're waiting. And Jay, who is driving and getting some bad reception right now. But Jason's going to try and join us as he's making his way down to Calgary, where he's going to be picking up a couple of our speakers for our Fundamental Truths event on Saturday, tomorrow. And in the interim, I have my trusty second co-host. So for the second time, I'd love to welcome...
Hi, how are you this morning?
Lovely Ken Dreiser. I'm great, Ken. I'm great. It's lovely to see you. Thank you again for stepping up to be my co-host today. Why don't you quickly go and tell everyone what you've been up to since you were last on? How was your Christmas and how is Manitoba Stronger?
Oh my goodness. You know, it's exciting times right now. Manitoba Stronger Together over the December period had a whole bunch of successes at various municipal councils. We also held our first ever Christmas event, which was a sellout. It was a potluck, believe it or not, free of charge, as all of our events are. It was an incredible evening. There's a video of it on our website, manitobastrongertogether.ca. And we were just busy. Our focus this year is the Manitoba municipal elections in October. And we're holding educational sessions. We're holding support sessions for candidates. And that should be an interesting context in October.
Wonderful. Glad to hear it. Oh, there you go. Jason's just dropped himself. No, that's wonderful. Really, really glad to hear, because you've been seeing some of the momentum that's going on in Alberta. There's talk about it in Quebec. There's now rumblings of it in Saskatchewan. What's Manitoba's thoughts on all this?
Well, like too often in this country, there's a split between the officials and the people. Mm-hmm. And I believe we're probably at about a 30 to 40% support for Western sovereignty, whatever that might end up being between Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. And the government, though, is it's really interesting. It's like they're walking past the graveyard whistling. You know, I don't want to hear this. You know, it's really interesting.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah, exactly. And and I think that's pretty standard these days, where the government's going this direction and the people are going that direction, and never the twain shall meet, as they say.
Yeah. No, I get that. And it's exciting. Jason, are you there? Nope. So we're just going to ignore him for now. When he can speak up,
I am hopefully here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you are. Hello. Hello, husband. Can you keep talking?
You can try. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh,
we can hear you now.
Great. I feel like I'm in a commercial for mobile coverage, because it's certainly going through towers. But that was a pretty good observation by Ken there, that the government basically has their fingers in their ears and not paying attention. La, 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 I can't hear you. Because he's right.
Yeah, exactly. And what is the feelings like what is the news coming into Manitoba about Alberta and the preparations for collecting the votes for the referendum? The signatures. So what are your thoughts? Like, what's the news coming in to Manitoba?
Well, you know, up until 3 or 4 days ago, I think people were quite focused on exactly what's going on in Alberta. And I think Manitobans, generally speaking, were cautiously optimistic on it. You know, we're a pretty pragmatic bunch in Manitoba. We're probably one of the most isolated provinces outside of the territories. You know, if you think about it, most provinces have big cities competing with each other. Edmonton, Calgary, Saskatoon, Regina. Winnipeg doesn't have that. You know, the next largest city, if you can call it that, is Regina. So we're kind of isolated. And so that makes us a little more cautious. Now, I said in the last 4 days, because with the events in the United States and Venezuela in the last 3 or 4 days, that may have, and maybe that's a topic for a different program, but that may have significant impact on what we're talking about concerning Alberta sovereignty, considering the 95 to 97% export rate of heavy crude to the United States from Alberta. So maybe that's another topic.
Well, something to think about. I saw an article the other day that talked about how Canada needs to be fearful because of the U.S. if they're dealing with, ICE, the issues with ICE dealing with illegal immigrants. Now they've dealt with Venezuela, and well, now Canada's their northern neighbor. What's Trump going to do now? Well, Trump is only addressing the issues that's attacking and affecting the U.S. in a negative way. If you're saying that Canada is doing that, then yeah, perhaps he is going to address it. But if we're working out just fine and have those good relations, then there's nothing to be concerned about. So I think what is Kanye going to do there? Is he going to continue trying to break the relationship with the U.S. and make more friends with Europe? Or is he going to try and push things a little? What are your thoughts?
Well, isn't that what Venezuela tried to do? They tried to have new friends with Russia and China, and the Americans decided that oil belonged to them. And I mean, you can think of this in a couple of different ways. The first way you can think of it is, chances are the oil that the Americans are now taking from Venezuela is going to be cheaper than the oil coming out of Alberta, and Venezuela has the largest oil reserves on the planet. They just have to go across the Gulf with their oil to the refineries in New Orleans, and Texas, and Louisiana. So that may affect the Americans' leverage, if you will, to buy Alberta oil. Now, if you want to take that to a further extension, so Mr. Trump has now kidnapped a leader of another country. He's threatened Colombia. He's threatened Mexico. He's threatening the NATO alliance by talking about taking over Greenland. Now, maybe that's all saber rattling, but we don't know at this point. And uncertainty is always a hard thing. And when you're considering what we're considering with Alberta sovereignty.
Yeah, and concerns where our oil production is going to go in order to help us guarantee income when we separate. That should definitely be food for thought for us. And then also we are trying to work it with the Asian markets as well. So we will see, but definitely, yes, there's always a ripple effect of what one nation does affecting others for sure. All right.
And there's another little aspect to this. Can you hear me there?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so as we saw a report yesterday, Paula, and Ken, I don't know if you know this because it's a very low on the radar. Russia's been using shadow tankers, ghost ships, where they change the flag and then go ahead and enter the markets with oil to kind of get around the sanctions. About 60% of their oil exports are using this. And recently, the U.S. chased down one of them and commandeered that tanker with the help of the British Navy. So that was and the Russian Navy also sent a sub to kind of deal with this situation. So there's a trigger of a hot war coming together there. And this reminds me of the Cuban Missile Crisis, where just off the shores of the U.S., they were not happy with what Russia was doing. And this could be another trigger off of Venezuela or other areas where Russia's trying to continue to export oil by changing the flags of the tankers. And there's about 300 to 500 of these tankers around the world doing this right now. So I'm curious if that's going to be a trigger point for this.
Well, that's an interesting observation, Jason, because there's a lot more parallels between what's going on now and what in the Cuban Missile Crisis. I'm old enough to remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. And as you recall, it was the Americans who put ballistic missiles in Turkey, which prompted Russia to respond by putting them in Cuba. Now, why do I say that's similar to now? Let me change the scenario a little bit. You see, the Americans claim that these tankers are illegal, not because they're violating international law, but they're violating domestic blockade that the Americans have put on other countries. Now, let me turn that around so people can understand that. Let's pretend that Russia gets mad at Britain and they say, we're going to sanction Britain. And then America tries to ship a truckload or a boatload of shoes to Britain, and Russia surrounds the ship and takes it over, saying it's illegal because it's our sanctions. It's no different than what the Americans did. Now, I'm not criticizing necessarily. I want people to understand what this is. So the Americans decided to put their own sanctions on a sovereign country to stop transshipments to other sovereign countries, and somehow that makes those shipments from a sovereign country illegal. When we just need to think about this a little bit, and I want to make sure people understand it. Think about if it was the other way around, what would happen.
Correct. And during, I think it was World War II, there was a torpedoing of a civilian cruise ship, and that really kicked off a lot of the tension. But what we're talking about here are not military ships. We're talking about, tankers. So if they keep seizing them, and you're correct, Ken, that often crosses my mind. If somebody else put a sanction on us and they tried to stop our trade, what would we do? That could be a trigger to a hotter war, especially when the sub that the Russians sent was a nuclear powered capable sub, and then the Americans responded with a sub Hunter airplane. Then the military, the Navy from Britain also participated because it was off the coast of Britain. So look, it doesn't take much for one person to push the wrong button to really get things going.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And you know what? Rosalie and I were talking about this the other day. Maybe people don't realize this, but we hire or vote in these leaders, and it is up to them to make sure that our sons and daughters don't die. And all too often they get involved in all of this empire building or whatever else you saber rattling, and they don't understand what the consequences. And the consequences are always that our children have to go and die for their mistakes or their stupidity. And I just hope we're not developing that now. It's a little too early to see, but there's certainly some extremely worrying developments in the last several days.
And on that note, Paula, there is a post from this morning by me that kind of starts touching on this about Canada's involvement with boots on the ground. So if you want to jump into that, we could.
Yeah, so what we can do, speaking of which, let me bring up the X and go through here. So the screen it's landed on is obviously for our event coming up tomorrow. So I'm just going to pop it up there here. So Jason, where are you off to right now and why?
To pick up one of our speakers at the airport. They're flying in at 9 a.m. Alberta time. So I'm going to be there with a smile on my face, pick up one of our speakers, pick up another one later on today, because I'm going to make sure that they all arrive rested and ready to go.
Yes, that's right. So we've got our speakers coming in. And so the event tomorrow, I'm just going to go ahead and pop the link in the chat. You want to go ahead and get tickets for the Fundamental Truths event tomorrow. It's going to be at Legacy Center. And that is going to be doors open at 1, event starts at 2. We're going to have all of our speakers there. And Jason, can you go rhyme off all of our speakers, please, while I'm putting up some things on the chat?
Absolutely. I'll do it from memory because Dr. Jack Mintz will be there. We have Leighton Gray, Mia Hughes, Shawn Buckley and Teresa Buckley, Bruce Pardy, Bathsheba Vandenberg, and John Carpe. Look at that. I think I got them all.
And your good self, and then Nadine Wellwood is going to be the moderator for the Q&A panel as well. And we have up to like 11 vendors so far, which is going to be, even 4 of them are going to be from our Nature's Market. So we're going to be talking about our lovely Tallow-licious and other products. But we have other vendors turning up that are going to be selling their wares and their books, and then including all the books that our great speakers are going to be have written will also be available as well. So it's going to be a great event with lots and lots of information available. So we would love to see you all. And don't forget
a signature table from Stay Free Alberta. So if you want to get your signature on that petition, you can go do that. You do not need a ticket to do that. That will be in the lobby. So as you walk in, you can go ahead and do that. But if you want to join us for the rest of the event, you can use SFA for Stay Free Alberta 20, SFA 20 for a 20% discount. So put your signature down, get a discounted ticket, and join us.
Yep. So we would love to see you there. Okay, so then the next subject we have here, this David Parker. All right, folks, talk to Mitch. We've raised $70,000 so far from online. Let's double that today. We need 700 people to donate $100. That's it. This will double the amount raised so far, not including checks that have not been deposited yet. We need to raise $560,000 ASAP. What's that for then? Love from David Parker.
Yeah, so let me remind everybody that APP, so Alberta Prosperity Project, is not running the petition signature drive. That is Stay Free Alberta, which is an organization started by Mitch Sylvester, who is the petitioner. Alberta Prosperity Project is an educational, nonpartisan, non-political organization, so they cannot and will not participate in the signature collection portion. They will continue to provide town halls and information about the advantages of the prosperity of Alberta, but they do not participate and cannot, according to Election Alberta rules, in the petition collection signature stage. So therefore, that means Stay Free Alberta is the official organization by Mitch Sylvester, and they are collecting donations to cover the costs to get this out there, because this is a very large endeavor to collect 1 million signatures.
Yep. Province-wide, they don't want any corner not attended, so that they are trying. So yes, if we can go ahead and support them, that would be fantastic.
Yes.
Next thing here, again, it's the reminder for the event for tomorrow. This is thank you very much from Rise of Alberta, who reposted our event. So great to see them. All right, so we have, this is important. Canada will be next. Breaking. The UAE announces it will cut funds from citizens who want to study in the UK out of fear of Emirati students being radicalized by the Muslim Brotherhood Islamists on British campuses. Want to share some information there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure Ken can chime in on this one. But babe, as you're seeing there, the UAE are very concerned about the radicalization of their youth, and it's happening out of the UAE. So when they're going to places like the UK to study, they're being radicalized on the campuses. This is happening everywhere. Like when you see the Free Palestine and the anti-this and the anti-that, this is radicalization on the campuses. And Canada may be one of the next ones that the UAE and possibly other countries will stop allowing their students to go to for the fear of that happening.
Yeah, and let's be aware, the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, are Islamic. Is an Islamic nation. They are Muslims already, but they have genuine concerns about radicalization and bringing that radicalization, that mentality to their nation, which is very small within the Middle East, and how it's going to affect them and subsequently affect the whole nation and its interaction with the West, because there is a huge expat community there, because they have a thriving business economy. So I'm not surprised that they have concerns about that.
And there's a second concern for them as well. If any of their homeborn people go and participate in terrorism around the world, it reflects bad on them. So if there's an attack on the U.S. or anything like that, and these are UAE-born citizens doing it, that will also deteriorate their reputation. So they're concerned in a few ways.
And what a way to be proactive. Quite honestly, I think that's fantastic on their part. They take this very, very seriously. It's their honor at stake too, and I think it's very interesting.
Sorry, love.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that Trump was willing to cut visas, and there's an uproar about wanting to limit the type of people coming into their country. But when the UAE is saying we want to minimize our own interaction with other nations, I think that says a lot.
Now, here's where I'm even concerned for Canada, and it's not just losing students. It's Muslim Brotherhood has been designated by the Trump organization to be a terrorist organization, along with Antifa. But Canada is not following suit on those. Canada has not designated Antifa as a terrorist organization. They're doing nothing about Muslim Brotherhood, but yet the UAE has identified the Muslim Brotherhood as a radicalization organization that's going to cause terror. So, Ken, what do you think about Canada kind of ignoring this? When you said, like, the walking past the graveyard, ignoring it, this is one of the things they're ignoring as well.
Well, actually, I don't. Sorry about that. I don't think they're ignoring it. I think they're supporting it. We're a country. We're a poor country of 40 million people, and we bring in 1.3. It's hard to get the numbers, but it's like 1.3 to 1.4 million people every year. Now, those are not all doctors and engineers and skilled workers. They're people from all kinds of troubled areas in the world, and they've purposely, in my opinion, hidden the facts of those numbers. And if anybody doubts me, go to Statistics Canada and type in the search bar how much immigration came into Canada last year, and it'll take you to studies about how important immigration is to Canada, how much of a contribution they do to the social fabric of Canada, all kinds of studies, but it's very, very difficult to find the numbers. And when you can find the numbers, they disguise them. they say there's only 500 or 600,000, but they don't mention the 700,000 additional ones they brought in on special visas. So Canada is actively, in my opinion, supporting this. They're actively hiding the truth from Canadians, and we are starting now, and we will even further start to reap the anti-benefits, if you will, of this policy. And it's been going on for years, by the way.
Now, the saber rattling that Trump did on his press conference about Venezuela was about the Monroe Doctrine, which is to secure the Western Hemisphere for the benefit and security of the United States. This makes a direct national security threat to the U.S. come from Canada, when we don't even recognize organizations that they recognize as a terrorist organization. So we become a safe harbor, a breeding ground for it. I think, without saying Canada, he was hinting to Canada, you guys better wake up and take care of your business, because you're going to become a threat in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. The Monroe Doctrine was from President Monroe in the mid 1800s, and essentially it says that the Americans will control everything in the hemisphere. I wonder why that doesn't apply to other countries in the world. Just asking for a friend.
Well, he did call it the Don Roe Doctrine now, because he's kind of expanding it, and maybe getting things like Greenland to be an American colony or whatever it is going to be, and going into Mexico, talking about putting boots on the ground in Mexico and doing strikes in Mexico. I think Canada really needs to start waking up. And Ken, I think you saw that headline where in the trade negotiations, they want Canada to drop Bill C-11 and C-18, which is already in force, and then Bills C-8 and C-9, which is going after the internet usage and the hate speech stuff. So they don't want a socialist country that's full of terrorists to the north of them. And I don't blame them, to be frank with you.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, the reality of the world we live in, and it had always been this reality, is the law of the jungle. Might is right. We have all kinds of international agreements. We have all things about other countries' sovereignty. You hear the Americans still screaming about how the Russians interfered in the 2016 election, and yet they're interfering on everybody else's elections around the world, are they not?
Yeah.
Well, look what's happening in Iran. All the headlines are peaceful protesters, but we all know there's the U.S. strings are behind those protesters, funding them, organizing them, encouraging them. Because they do that here. They do that during Black Lives Matter. They did that in January 6th. Like, they do that here. So, of course, they're interfering in Iran for that de-civilization effort.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I think one of the most interesting and perhaps a more subtle things that happened in the last 4 days is that Trump didn't try to pretend that they were invading Venezuela out of democracy. He said, we're getting the oil. We're bringing the oil home, and and the Americans and the Venezuelans will benefit from this. So there was none of this stuff they've used in the past, where we're creating a barrier against communism. And he was honest. He essentially, their empire building, and whether that's right or wrong is irrelevant, because we live in a dog eat dog, the strong prevails world, and you can see that everywhere, not just the Americans.
And the Democrats have short-term memory issues, as we know. I think that's part of the definition of Democrats, because Biden issued $25 million bounty on Maduro to collect them. So I wonder if Trump is going to collect on that $25 million now.
He actually talked about that on a press conference, and he looked hilarious. Now the other interesting thing is, and it's kind of all related to this, because you brought up the short-term memory, is that you're having all of these protests in the streets about getting rid of the illegal aliens, and they're going, they're getting violent. As you know, somebody got shot the other day, and what they don't remember is that President Obama, he exiled over 3 million illegal aliens out of the country during his tenure, and there was no protests in the streets. There was no police standing down. It's an incredible thing.
Well, yeah, because under that formula, it's a Democrat president, they can do no wrong, and the Republicans actually support deportation. So who's going to complain?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right,
It's
then
a magic formula.
let's move on to the next one. This was a repost you did for Mark Nixon yesterday. This was the joke on my YouTube channel. Today it's official. Liberal MP Michael Ma, the Conservative defector, is traveling with Mark Carney to Beijing.
Yeah, he's getting his pat on his head. Good boy, you did good. He's going to go collect his whatever, whether it's his praises or something else. But yeah, I'm not surprised he got into Carney's fold really quickly. I'm not surprised that he's going to be part of this trip to China. And Ken, talk about hypocrisy. If you're going to support the Ukraine against Russia, but now you're going to try and trade with Russia's biggest trading partner, which side of the table are you really on? Are you helping Ukraine? Are you not? Like, what are you doing here?
Well, you have to question whether or not these representatives have a bloody clue about what's going on, except for what they're told by the CBC or whatever other handlers happen to be in Ottawa. It's they're constantly doing this, which is against that and contradicting themselves. So you really have to wonder about the intelligence and experience of these people.
Well, I do have to correct you because you said handlers in Ottawa. I think you mispronounced China. I think the handlers are from China. There's a lot of foreign interference in Ottawa, and we're seeing it unfold right here with that story.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and his tour, Carney's tour, he's hitting China, he's hitting Qatar, so he's checking another AI oil-rich nation, and then he's off to WF. He's going to be off to Davos, so it's quite the tour that he's going to be going on in January, and they're all nefariously connected, unfortunately.
Yeah, doesn't that make you proud?
That certainly adds a couple more signatures to the Independence Alberta petition, I'll tell you. I think Carney is the best proponent of Alberta independence, especially when he does this kind of stuff.
I agree.
I agree, and I think it's an interesting way for him to be starting the new year, a tour of China and then getting towards heading to Davos as well for the WEF conference. I wonder what other names and people are going to be arriving. If there are going to be any new ones, who are the new people that are going to be the next generation that are going to be bringing through the organization?
Well, Trump's going to Davos as well to throw some cold water in their face and tell them that institutional investors and large investors can no longer control the housing market in the U.S. So I wonder how that kind of reception will be. He's going to go and pee on their parade.
Well, it'll be similar to the reception he got last year, when he gave that spanking to them all.
Yeah, because we had Klaus Schwab retire shortly after that spanking, so we'll see what else happens. Yeah,
we'll see. We'll get updated. Next post you shared was from Ryan Getterson. Hold on, this could be Darwinism at work. First they sign up, next they are sent to Europe, last they are on the front line. Never interrupt when they are making grave mistake. And this is for her absurdity knows no bounds. This is from Laura Babcock. Wow, since today Osho aired, I've had over 500 comments of Canadians willing to fight for our country, many seniors and youth. I hope Mark Carney understands that 1 million of us would sign up to be a citizens' army if given the chance.
Correct. So these are the leftist activists that are trying to support Carney and tell him, yeah, we're ready to fight for your citizen army. But if you connect the dots, well, that will be the Canada army that they pull on, like a reservist. And Carney's talking about boots on the ground in Europe and assist Ukraine, and with all the NATO saber rattling as well. This could actually literally mean these are the people that he sends there. So I say let them go ahead and recruit, let them sign up. Because Darwinism is a good thing. We need to correct our gene pool anyways. So I say stay out of the way on this one. Let them go.
They would never go. They wouldn't get through the basic training.
Well, there is no basic training, love. They really lowered a lot of things here to get people there. But if they're going to sign up and they're going to sit on a ship and they're going to go fight for democracy in the Ukraine, one of the most corrupt countries in the world, let them. I say don't stand in the way on this one.
Well, while they support the Monroe Doctrine in North America and condemn what Russia's doing in Ukraine, it's really an interesting dichotomy, don't you think?
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, go ahead. Completely. Yeah, Ukraine needs some more people. I'll help support that. I'll go just speak at events. I'll do whatever I can to help them sign up.
All right. Well, it is 8:30, and I see our
7:30.
lovely 7:30, and I see our lovely guest. I see one face. I see two faces. So I'm going to go ahead and get lovely Shawn and Teresa Buckley to join us.
Fantastic.
Good morning, you two. Happy Friday.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
Good morning. Very
morning.
early in the morning. Good morning.
Is,
Good morning, you two.
is Tweety awake yet?
Oh, right. We forgot to move the birds. So we'll see how it goes. It's the morning show, right?
But they have much
morning,
to
sir.
say on freedom issues.
They've heard a lot.
They
bet.
I'm sorry, they heard a lot.
Yeah, they've heard a lot, and they have recorded a lot.
Okay,
Yeah.
so hold on a second. I'm just trying to change the. Jason, can you just take over for a second? I'm just trying to move our screen.
Well, I'm very thankful that Shawn and Teresa are joining us this morning because they're two of the speakers at our event on Saturday. I'm really looking forward to Teresa's closing because I think, Teresa, what you have in mind to remind people of is not only something that touches my heart and my faith, but I think it's actually going to be something that's valuable for people to walk away from. So thank you very much for stepping up and offering to be part of this event. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Jason. I'm certainly stretching myself and going out of my comfort zone.
Aw,
And I think that's
thank
kind
you.
of the message we need to do, that everybody should stretch themselves and get out of their comfort zone. So stepping up and leading leading by example, I think is going to be a wonderful addition to this event and a fabulous way to close it.
Thank you. We'll see. As long as I don't trip, you know.
You'll be fine.
We'll do our
You'll
best
be
on
fine.
that. Yeah, and then Shawn, thank you again. Once again, you're coming out to assist the public with information and knowledge. You're coming to one of our events, and I'm looking forward to what you have in store for us because the government, administration, we've got the agencies, and you've been fighting Health Canada before it was even cool. So I'm really glad that you're going to join us and have a conversation on that.
Oh, I take offense to that. I think it's always been really cool. It's just everyone's now catching up with us. So
A trendsetter.
No,
We got a trendsetter. Yes.
it's going to be a crazy good event. So if anyone's in the Red Deer area or, like we all love to drive in wintertime. So, come on out. I'm not going to share what I'm speaking about, but, I was praying about it yesterday and it kind of came to me what I'm supposed to share within my topic. And I'm quite excited about it. I will get you thinking about something in a different way and share some information that you need to know. So that's what's so cool about this event. The lineup of speakers is just powerful. It's going to be quite the event.
Yeah,
So
we're pretty
one of
proud
the
of it.
well, it's like a wedding for us. We're bringing all our favorite people together. We're going to make sure they're fed and housed and picked up at the airport, which is what I'm doing right now. It feels like a wedding, Paula, coming together here.
Yeah, good times. Good times.
But the question I ask all the speakers that come on this week is not getting into your speech, but what does fundamental truth mean to you? So let's go ahead and start with Shawn on that one. What is a fundamental truth for you?
Oh, that's a good question. Are you asking kind of philosophically, what is actually truth? Or
Yeah, and why it's important to get back to it. Like, how is it a foundation to solutions, really?
Yeah, so it's the word fundamental that I'm tripping on. So I'll just talk about truth because the problem is, and you might be able to help me out, which CIA leader was it that said, when everything the American public believes is a lie, then basically they've accomplished what they've wanted to accomplish. Is, your audience will actually think that they're awake. And it's actually a term we use. Like when you're feeling out new people, we'll even ask if it's looking hopeful, are you awake? Which the question means, are you aware that things are not the same as the mainstream media would portray them to be? Really, when you think about it, because those of us that would say we're awake, really the divide between us is our media source. So people that still believe the mainstream media are actually living in a different reality, because what we believe is the reality we experience. So, and we're so taught to have closed minds that it's absolutely incredible. So to me, I guess truth is being absolutely open to challenging ideas. Truth is understanding that you have a belief system, I have a belief system that's based on what I've accepted to be true, but that's a constructed reality also. So I think at the very core, the only way we can attain truth is accepting that everything we believe can be changed and is a construct, and that we have to actually be open to other people's ideas and to new information. So, I'm going to be sharing at the event, and I know others are. I'm going to be sharing about an area that you think is one way that is it's such a complete con job on the entire population of Canada, and yet most people will believe that it's true. Well, it's not. So, I mean, I don't know that I can say what is true or isn't true, except I think the important thing to understand is that all of us, myself included, are really victims of our own minds. And we only trap ourselves within our realities when we're not willing to entertain new ideas and listen to others.
Agreed.
I like the way you frame that, because it's about sharing ideas. And Paula was with me when we were in a restaurant just the other day, and the only time we see main state or legacy media is when we're at a restaurant eating. And Ken, I think you're gonna like this one, because I think you'll agree. But it was a streamed version of CTV News, and they don't put the commercials on there. So while they're waiting for the commercials, the screen literally said CTV News. Programming will continue in, and then there was a countdown timer there. But they used the word programming. They didn't say the news or information, but they said programming, because that's exactly what they're doing, isn't it, Ken?
Oh, absolutely. And again, this has also been a long-term plan. There used to be laws in Canada that news organizations broadcasting on the airwaves had to provide the truth, and they had to provide both sides of an argument. And of course, we struck that down. Now, we also have in Canada anti-combines legislation, but somehow these anti-combines legislation, which are supposed to stop small companies from blobbing together and making a monopoly, somehow that doesn't apply to the media, and that's right around the world. So they keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you get this one monolithic voice coming at you constantly. So I don't know why our country would do these things that we did to allow this to happen, unless, like, I can't imagine in my own mind that you can be this incompetent. So it's got to be part of a plan. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well,
certainly.
I can say, Ken, that, at the NHBPA, we were thinking of maybe starting a collection for the mainstream media to pay for internet connections, because obviously they're not able to, when they're doing stories, to research and do fact checks and find out what is out there.
Right.
And it's likely because the management isn't providing them with internet connections.
We want to be helpful.
Yeah. So we're just,
up,
we're feeling very sorry for those journalists that are having to put together and report stories without access to the internet.
Well, a lot of their headquarters are in Ontario, and Doug Ford kicked out Starlink, so maybe they just didn't get their Telesat connections working yet. So that could be one of the reasons why they can't get their internet. But Teresa, what I think is a good segue here is the messengers of faith, because the last few episodes we've had a lot of conversation about faith. Yesterday, Pastor Sean Ham was on about Sheba Vandenberg, and it was a great discussion about a return to faith, and there seems to be one. So maybe one of the ways forward is to be far more courageous to bring forward the messages and share them. What are your thoughts there?
I think we're all extremely frightened still. And I believe we're still traumatized. I think we like to kid ourselves to think that we're out of it or we're getting better. And I think that leads us to trouble. Also, God is actually in control of this. We're not. All we're asked to do is just to be faithful servants and to do what it is that he wants us to do. But in order to get to that spot, to hear what it is that he wants us to do, we have to reconcile with the sins that we've committed. And part of that is acknowledging what has actually happened. And we're not there yet. So I think we have to be really careful not to jump to chapter 20 when we're still on chapter 7. Because I think if we jump to chapter 20, it's just going to be the same old thing, just with different players.
Can I jump into this conversation? So, at the Edmonton hearings of the National Citizens Inquiry, we had Theo Fleury talk about trauma. And it's his best presentation ever. It beats his TED Talks. It beats everything out there. And he actually explains how the entire nation of Canada was abused during COVID and actually needs to come to grips with what happened and work through that. Now, I think, Jason and Paula, that 2026 is the year of breakthrough. So I think we can all heal. Like, one thing is it's in Timothy, God, it says that he did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and discipline. And we can get all caught up in, ourselves and the trauma, but all we have to do is claim that promise. Like, God doesn't say things and not mean them. And if I can help put this in perspective for people, if the reality is, and I mean, just read Psalm 139. The reality is he knows how many hairs are on your head. He knows your thoughts before you do. He knows what you're going to say before you do. And he actually wrote a book of what your destiny is supposed to be. He wrote a book about you before you were called into existence. And so here's the point I want to make for everyone watching this, is you have to understand that you were deliberately designed and placed at this time to have these world experiences. You're here by design. So you're not here to be in fear over this. You're not here to cower in your basement over this. You were designed and purposed to be here to have this experience because there's a specific destiny for you to walk in at this point of history. And if you actually understand that truth, then it's very empowering, because you can just start asking God, okay, reveal to me what I'm supposed to be doing. Draw close to him. It's funny, Teresa and I were on a show 2 days ago that was taped. It's not broadcast yet. Where it just came out that, we can be totally blocked in our destiny if we're holding unforgiveness towards others. Well, if somebody was to ask me, do you hate some of, and I won't name them, some of the leaders during COVID? Do you actually hate them? Do you hate some of the people that were on the other side of this? I think I have some forgiveness issues to work through.
Oh, do you?
That I'm gonna. I know that's hard to believe. That I'm gonna have to work through, and I think we all do. So I think 2026 is going to be a year of empowerment.
Yeah.
So we need to, even like the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive others who trespass against us. It's conditional.
And And it's an ongoing action, right? As we forgive.
So, yeah, so I think 2026, that everyone should understand they're placed here on purpose. So they were designed and placed here on purpose with a specific plan for them alone. So how could you possibly be afraid? Regardless of what happens to you, you're here for a very specific plan at this time, at this moment. And that's actually very exciting. And to experience that, you need to draw close to God. You need to clear the table, which means forgiving, because that just blocks you. It ties you, it weighs you down in so many ways. And, you know, at the end of the day, what we're called to do, aside from loving God, is to love each other. And you can't do that if you're harboring unforgiveness.
That's such a powerful message, especially for this year as we're making our way through that, because we got to forgive a whole bunch of people, and sometimes even ourselves, because we made things and did things that we're not proud of, like went ahead and just went along with things, or was angry at our neighbors or family for what they tried to do or force us to do, etc. So Ken, you were there when Theo was giving his testimony in Edmonton, and what I thought was very powerful was the talking about how the government's abusing you, but he also recognized, because he's a survivor of grooming, that the government's been grooming Canadians to accept this abuse and then go back and forth with it. And I thought that was a very powerful piece of it. And I think Shawn is absolutely correct. We are where we're supposed to be, so we can do what we need to do for our destiny. And you sitting there watching that testimony and your contributions over the years to the NCI, I'm sure has opened your eyes up in ways that I bet you never thought you could before. What are your thoughts there, Ken?
Well, you're absolutely right. You know, in my experience, Canadians don't have as much problem forgiving others, but they have problem forgiving themselves. And you can imagine, or maybe you can't imagine, there's folks waking up now realizing that one way or another they were responsible for their mother's death in an old folks home in loneliness. They were responsible for forcing their children to take a shot that has injured them or killed them. They're responsible for the businesses that went bankrupt. They're responsible for doubling the Canadian national debt. Can you imagine waking up and seeing that and having to forgive yourself, as opposed to having to forgive the butcher on the corner that wouldn't let you in his store without a mask? So I think the operative forgiveness that Canadians need to consider is themselves, and understanding that we are fallible humans and we can be fooled. And it's not necessarily your fault when you're being beaten on hour after hour, day after day, 24 hours a day, this message of the world is coming to an end and all of this stuff. So I see the biggest hurdle to this, and this is in a significant topic, forgiveness, but forgiveness first of ourselves for what we were led into, what we allowed ourselves to be led into. And again, in hindsight, you know, this seems to me what happened to us in the last 3 or 4 years is no different than what happened during the plagues in the Middle Ages. You know, these people with these crazy masks on, and they were doing all kinds of crazy things, and some of them were putrid. And then in hindsight, you think, what could you possibly have been thinking? And Canadians are waking up to that, standing 6 feet apart in a grocery store. And that's supposed to stop an aerosol virus? Putting on a piece of cloth that's all full of chemicals and breathing it all day. And if you're in a restaurant, you can take it off if you're sitting down. But if you're a school child sitting down, you have to have it on. And if you get up, this is insanity. And people are waking up to that. I had a discussion yesterday with a couple whose health has gone crazy, and they're healthy people. And then the first question from me is, how many vaccines did you take? 5 or 6 of them. And trying to understand that you participated in this, whether not necessarily by your own will, but you were caught up in this. It's Self-forgiveness, I think, is the first step. And Shawn, you made a speech about that, and I'm can't remember. I think it was in Winnipeg during the NCI. Did you not?
Like on forgiveness? Like in an opening? Oh, I absolutely know that I did, because I recall using the parable of the master settling accounts. So, in fact, it's interesting, Jason and Paula and your audience. So the openings at the National Citizens Inquiry were quite something. Is, I wasn't supposed to be in front of the camera, and then Toronto's approaching, and lawyers started dropping like flies. So it was like, okay, I've got to go to Toronto and call witnesses.
I was horrified, by the way.
Yeah, because we were afraid of being identified. I mean, remember, bank accounts had just been frozen. We'd been locked down for 2 winters. When the NCI started, I mean, the nation was still in a state of terror and fear. We had witness after witness after witness drop out in fear. And mostly actually social consequences, sometimes economic, but mostly social consequences, because the division and hatred was so strong. So, I'm having to call all the witnesses on day 1 at Toronto, over half on day 2 and close to half on day 3. I had 1 lawyer on day 2 and 2 lawyers on day 3. And then it was rinse and repeat for all the other ones. So now I'm in front of the camera. Well, we're flying to Toronto for these hearings, and it's like, oh yeah, I got to give an opening. So I actually thought about on the plane. I mean, I would have prayed about it, but thought about it, and I gave an opening, and that was the opening, Ken, on how the vaccinated and unvaccinated had the exact same experience, which is a forgiveness issue, right? Like understanding we were all just acting based on what we believed, but actually having the same experience. Well, I call all those witnesses all day. It's probably not till like 1:30 in the morning when I can actually get to preparing for the opening for day 2, because I'm preparing for the witnesses. I'm the main organizer. I got all these administrative tasks. I'm assigning witnesses to the lawyers we have for Winnipeg and all of this. So it's like early in the morning. It's time to me to work on the opening for that morning. And and God just said to me, I'll take the openings. Like, I don't want you to prepare the open. I want the openings, and I had a decision to make. Now, I'm a little wiser now. I've learned I need to negotiate better, because I said sure, and what I should have said is because I did say, I said yeah, but you've got to. I'm not going in front of people. Like, we ended up having huge audiences, so I'm not going in front of tens of thousands of people without at least an outline, so that if I'm stumbling, I've got some piece of paper to look to where I could go next. And he agreed to that, right? So, but here's where I didn't negotiate well, as I should have said yes, and you have to give me that outline the night before, because I can tell you many nights I would sit down and try to get it. It would not come. It wouldn't come. Yeah. And then I would have trouble sleeping, because I'm a type A personality. I want to do a good job. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to look like an idiot in front of people tomorrow morning, because I have no opening. But and Teresa can attest to this, is usually the outline would come. We'd just have time to write it down, and then we'd have to get in the car and drive there and give the opening. And so it's amazing. I watched some of them, and it looks like it was written by speech writers and rehearsed 20 times, because they flowed so well. But there were times I was up there and things were coming out of my mouth, and it was like, oh, I've never thought of it that way before. Like, one of them that comes to mind was in Ottawa, when one of the openings was actually about judgment, if you can believe it. And he's explaining judgment through me in a way, and I'm sitting there inside going, oh, wow, this is really cool. I hadn't thought of it that way. So those openings, they're inspiring, and I'd encourage anyone to just go and watch them. We kind of segued there, but I did do an opening on forgiveness for sure.
And I just want to highlight a couple of the chats that's coming, because talking about forgiveness has certainly prompted a response from our viewers. So the first one here is from Darlene: by not forgiving and letting go, it eats at you. I I think we can definitely all agree with that. But then here's one that followed up with Kim. So forgive the devil and those who worship him. I think that's a little bit, that one response is a little bit harsh because, and then we also have the never forget. But I did like a comment here from our locals: accountability first, forgiveness maybe second. So you can see from the chat that they acknowledge that, yeah, it's important
can I
to
share
forgive,
that? Can I share
but
that parable
difficult.
then? Because it's
just I don't think you can, sir. I don't think you can get to accountability without forgiveness first.
Sure.
Because without forgiveness first, as Ken mentioned, of yourself and of the others, you I don't think you even have a remote chance to get to what Jason had mentioned, fundamental truth.
And I'd like to just add something here for my audience, which is don't conflate forgiveness with amnesty. Forgiveness doesn't mean there's no accountability. Forgiveness doesn't mean forget.
Yeah, it's different.
Don't conflate the two.
You do the forgiveness for yourself because you don't want to live because it will eat you. And I feel like I stand with some sort, I sat through all of the hearings. I was there the whole time. I organized the thing. I heard everyone. I spoke to everyone. You never saw me in front of the camera. But I went through, I woke up during the hearings. There was myself and another commissioner that woke up during the hearings. And there were times, there were times where Michelle and myself and Heather, like the three of us, and we were taping. I would be on the one side of the table, the lawyer's table. Michelle Leduc Caitlin was at the press, and she went the entire road, the entire time as well. And then there was Heather on the top. The three of us were just bawling. We were just bawling, and we're taping. And there's someone on the stand, and then there's the lawyer that's probably Shawn, who's trying to keep it together. And the three of us are just.
But, back to forgiveness, I think most of us have to understand, what we're experiencing, every other generation experiences. And so we all experience awful things happening, and almost always, listen carefully, almost always there's no justice. There's no accountability. So it's a rare day when that occurs. And, maybe we'll have justice and accountability for what happened during COVID in Canada, and maybe we won't. But if you don't forgive, and trust me, I want accountability. Because the best way to stop this going forward is for those that follow to understand they'll be held accountable. Mm-hmm. If, they force things upon other people. So, I want accountability, but, I understand through history that it's a rare day when that happens. And so if I was to expect that there's going to be accountability, I will most likely be disappointed. So, but forgiveness is actually, it's funny because when we're told to do things in the Bible, it's almost always for our benefit. Mm-hmm. And Ken, that opening that you're talking about on forgiveness is I simply just shared a parable that Jesus had shared. And what had happened is I think it was Peter had come to Jesus and said, if somebody wrongs us, are we supposed to forgive them 7 times? And when Peter's asking that, he's thinking that's so ridiculous. There's no way Jesus will say, I need to forgive somebody who wrongs me up to 7 times. That's just unheard of. So he's not expecting the answer he gets. And Jesus says, no, you're to forgive them 7 times, 70 times. Now, Jesus doesn't mean that after 490 times that you can stop forgiving. He's just making the point there's no end to how many times you have to forgive somebody. And then he tells this parable. And he says, there was this master that went to settle accounts with his servants. Now, back in that day, if you didn't pay a debt, if you couldn't pay a debt, there was what was called debtor's prison. So you and your family could be imprisoned over, debts that you can't pay. And so this guy, and I'll just pick modern day figures to make a point. So this master has this servant brought before him, and he says to the servant, I've loaned you $400,000, and, I'm now calling my debts and I need you to pay. And this servant can't pay. And, he's realizing, oh my gosh, my world's ending here because I can't pay. Like, what I borrowed it for, it went wrong. I don't have the money. There's no way I can repay this debt. So I'm going to debtor's prison and my family's going to be destroyed. And his world's collapsing in front of him. So he does the only thing he can do. He only has one chance, and that is to beg for mercy. So he falls on his knees and he's weeping. And he just begs his master, like, I can't pay you, please forgive me. And the master's moved with compassion and says, I forgive you your debt. Like, go on your way. So this guy's like leaving, and he runs into another servant who, he lent 40 grand to, like just a fraction of what he owed. And he says to this servant, he says, I'm calling my debts. I need you to pay. And this other servant, he's in the exact same spot this guy was just in. He can't repay. He's like poor, and that 40 grand didn't work out the investments he was hoping. He understands he's going to go to prison. He understands his family's going to be destroyed. His children might literally starve. That's the type of world it was. And there's only one thing that he can do. He has one chance, and that's to beg for forgiveness. So he falls on his knees and he's weeping and he's saying, please forgive me. And the servant says no and sends him to debtor's prison. Now, other servants see this and go tell the master who has this guy brought back. And he says, you wicked servant, I forgave you 400,000 and you wouldn't forgive this guy 40,000, like off to debtor's prison with you. And Jesus is making the point that our debt to God is so much greater than the wrongs that other people do to us. And yet we're forgiven. But if we forgive others, there's that contingency, which is why it's in the Lord's Prayer. I mean, it's Jesus's words. He taught us how to pray, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive others who trespass against us. We think in our minds. And if your thoughts through your life could be broadcast onto a movie screen for your community to see, you'd have to leave town. And those are just your thoughts, let alone your secret actions. So, the point is we should be grateful that, God's just so happy to not even, he doesn't see us as sinners. He doesn't see us as awful. He sees us as children, as joint heirs. We should just be so grateful that we're thankful to forgive. And I'm talking to myself because, as I said at the beginning of the show, I've come to understand I'm still harboring resentment towards some of the leaders, which means that I have unforgiveness that I need to deal with.
And let's remember one of the last words on earth Jesus said during the crucifixion is, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And that's something to keep in mind. And again, it doesn't mean they get away with it or there's no accountability or amnesty. It simply means you got to release your heart, because with a clear mind and a clear heart, you can actually do a lot more good for you and the community. So Ken, as we wrap up the public portion of this, how do you think 2026 and leaning towards fundamental truths like forgiveness, how do you think that's going to help a lot of the people who are still struggling to forgive themselves?
Well, forgiveness is an internal act. You carrying around a bucket of hatred in your belly doesn't really affect your neighbor unless you go out and smash the headlights of their car. So you're actually carrying that bucket of poison inside you. So releasing that poison doesn't let the other person off the hook. It doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean there isn't consequences. It just means that you're going to cleanse yourself from the poison that you're carrying around. Now, what I have seen through the end of 2025 and now starting, believe it or not, already into 2026, we're only 9 days in, is that in the late part of 2025, I saw Canadians starting to at least express the opinion that they were losing hope, that there was hopelessness, that they didn't know what they could do. And that stage of emotion always precedes the next stage, which is understanding it and getting past it and dealing with it. And so already in 2026, at least in the bubble that I'm in, I'm starting to see people opening their eyes and coming to grips and starting to think, maybe I can do something. Maybe it is in my hands. Maybe it isn't the hero riding in on a horse. It's me. Maybe it's not a consultant. Maybe it's not a report, but what I can do. And so I'm seeing Canadians starting to get involved. And like everything else in this world, you have to start from nothing and build to something. And so I see people starting to get involved in local elections. I see people starting to show up at council meetings. I see people starting to watch commissioner meetings, all of these kinds of things. And that is the start of the process. Because when people start to get little successes in those things, those smaller things, they start to grow and grow, and their confidence grows, and it gets onto the higher platforms. But people need to realize that they need to crawl before they can walk, and they have to walk before they can run. And I see that happening now. I see people understanding that they have valuable resources and skills. I always tell, and we haven't got time here, but I always tell the story about the cinnamon bun. And it's a true story. And it's kind of like, in deference to my friends Shawn and Teresa, it's kind of like the question you might ask about the story about the loaves and the fishes. And the question I always like to ask about that is because everybody knows about the kid that had the lunch and everybody knows how Jesus multiplied it. But my question is, who packed the lunch? Maybe your role in this is packing the lunch. And so everybody's starting to realize that they have a place and they have a skill. It might not be on the soapbox. It might not be raising $10 million. Maybe you pack the lunch. Maybe you bring the cinnamon buns. And if you're interested in knowing what that is, you can take a look at some of the shorts on our social media.
All right, I think that's a good way to go ahead and end for today. But we are going to go over to our locals. So hold on, I'm going to try and get myself. So for Shawn and Teresa, if you can just go ahead and hang on, and we will join you again in the next 1 minute. So hold on a second, please.
And I would encourage Ken to hang around as well. And my love, don't forget the other platforms. You'll have to remove them. I'm not helping on that.
Yes, I know. So I wanted to at least highlight a couple things that kind of made me giggle when we're talking about forgiveness. So we have a comment here which started a bit of a thread. I'm not sure about forgiving Trudeau or Freeland, or Hinshaw or Bonnie Henry, or Theresa Tam, or Jimmy Parnell. There's so many. Fauci, Biden, Dr. Strange here in Strang here and Nova Scotia, and Tim Houston. So there is a growing list of, yes, officials, representatives, people in general that we need to forgive, and primarily for ourselves, just for the benefit of ourselves. We still want accountability because one of our locals commenters made the post saying that if there's no deterrent, it will be repeated. So certainly we are looking for accountability, but we need for ourselves to offer that forgiveness, because it will just eat at us. I definitely agree.
Forgive, but do not forget.
Yeah, it's going to be, don't forget. Completely agree. And then as a reminder, everyone, last day to get your tickets online for the reserve seating. They are $30, otherwise $20 general admission. And then tomorrow at the door, they will be $30 general admission if you want to go and head in. And you can, of course, go ahead and sign for the Stay Free Alberta in the lobby. at the Legacy Center. So we would love to see you there tomorrow in Red Deer. Any comments?
And to be clear, if you cannot make it, we forgive you.
Ha ha ha. Otherwise, everyone, as a reminder as well, the Tea and Coffee with Paula and Jay will not be on next week. Jason is going to be busy on tour, doing a bunch of things with Bruce Party while he's in Alberta. And so there will be no show from Monday to Friday next week. There may be posts, of course, that Jason will be keeping you informed of what's going to be going on with him. And I don't know if you're doing any interviews at all. Maybe you're going to be rescheduling the one with Leighton, maybe. But otherwise, there'll be no Tea and Coffee next week. So we will return the week after. Any other notes there, love?
Just stay tuned to our posts for locations to meet Bruce Party. There'll be a couple in Edmonton on January 12th and January 18th. So stay tuned for that. Leduc, January 16th, and Digsbury, January 14th. But do stay tuned on the location, the venues, and the times. We'll keep you posted.
All right. So otherwise, everyone, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. See you in a week's time. Hopefully see a lot of you tomorrow in Red Deer. But otherwise, bye from me.
Bye from me.
And bye from Ken and Jason. You can do your sign off.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. Make sure you share this out. Remember, we love you all very much, and God bless.
Hold on. It's taking its time. The outro is not coming on, my love.
I forgive you.
Yeah, I would hope so. I'm just going to go ahead and then